this edition of The Final Whistle on Lair Media. Usual email info@lairmedia.tv, and thank you for all the viewership and all the figures that are going up. But of course, thank you to our social media person who's driving the train, so to speak. Anyway, good evening, Anna Moore, and welcome.
Thanks, Pat.
Good evening, Joe Waters, and welcome to you.
Good evening, Pat.
And good evening, Chris Price.
Evening, Pat.
Now, good evening, Rua, as well. I see his head there. He's after calming down. He's after calming down. I see he's asleep and he's grand.
He is.
We sent out a card, but I mean, a man, we'll just top the program. Frank O'Farrell passed away at 94 and a half or something like that in Torquay, where himself and his wife ran a nursing home, and in the latter years of his career. Frank O'Farrell, of course, was born in Blackpool and lived out in the Thomas Cross area, for anybody who knows Cork City, and he played with Cork United, and obviously with Often to West Ham and Preston. Joe, you knew Frank O'Farrell, did you?
Yes, I did. In fact, Frank O'Farrell came over after I signed for Leicester City in 1969, and Frank had just taken over as the manager there. And that year he led the team to the FA Cup final, and unfortunately we got relegated from the first division. But 2 years later, he led us back to the first division. We won the second division championship. But I often spoke to him and our chief scout Ray Shaw, and I happened to be at a schoolboy international match at Sheffield United. It was England versus Ireland. Des Kennedy was playing in it, and Ray Shaw said to me, he said, "I'm going to Limerick next weekend with Frank to watch a match." And I said, "Oh, you are?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I just live down the street from the Marcus Field. I live in Garryowen." He said, "Oh." He said, "Well, we'll stop down and see your parents then." So they watched the game. They were watching Jerry Duggan play, and after the game they came down, and Frank is sat in the front room, and of course he gets the pride of the chair, my mother's chair, and she gives him a cup of tea, and as she gives him the tea, he goes to put it down and nearly fell out of the chair. So we nearly had a dead first division manager in Kilmurray Avenue. But yeah, so yeah, he was I knew him pretty well, and very sad that he's passed away, but he's had a very good life.
No, of course, lads, and Chris, he took over the Pies and Charles in 1970 of Man United, an aging team full of trouble and strife, with a lot of carry on in the club by players who really were coming. A lot of them were coming to the end of their careers, but some of them had serious, including George Best, of course. You know, I saw a documentary on the other night, actually. But now, Chris, you don't remember, obviously you're too young, way too young to remember Frank O'Farrell. But you might have seen old photographs, and you know who.
Check in the post, Pat. Checks in the post.
The Man United team had won all around them. They had won the European Cup, the first English team to do so from England. I hasten to add, Celtic had won it in '67, and Man United won it in '68. Wasn't it against Benfica?
Benfica 4-1 at Wembley Stadium.
Yeah.
And of course, they had won the World Cup in between England as well. And so it was a high time for English soccer, and Matt Busby was a legend. And just like, do you know something? It mirrors today's Man United team, unfortunately, where what's his name? Ferguson is gone.
Yeah, it's repeating itself.
It's not just the manager, it's the caliber of players are pathetic.
Do you know what? When you talk about Frank O'Farrell, okay, you had a guy that was manager but had no power, and it was like I think it's kind of mirror image what's happening today, because you can see it with one or two of the managers that have been with United for the last 5-6 years. There was talk of the fact that Sir Matt Busby wasn't able to let go, that when he was a director but more of a director, if you understand. And that
Yeah.
no matter who was in charge was always going to have, one eye over their shoulder, looking to see what was going on. And that, I mean, there was a great documentary about Franco Farrell that was on RT about 4 or 5 years ago, and where he was blatantly and brutally honest about what happened at the time, where he knew himself that he was kind of in a no-win situation where you know I don't think it was just him. It would be no matter who had been taking over that particular time. I know Joe said it off air before that Wilf McGuinness took it first and then Franco Farrell, but once you've got an iconic figure that's still involved, then it's very, very difficult to have total control. And you can see even, with the way that Ronaldo was brought back with Man United, that, the story basically was that it was Ferguson that pulled the strings on that one. And I mean, if you've got so the question is he retired, or is he ever going to retire? So I mean, that's the question that was always on. And I think, and I think one thing I listened to tonight before we came up here was that Franco Farrell was the only Irishman ever to win an international tournament with an international side. And that was with Iran in '74. And he probably, when he looked back at it, if he late in the later years, and Joe would probably know more, he probably decided, you know what, let's get out of this football business, because there's more things better in life than being torn apart in the press. And maybe he made the right decision to go down to Turkey and do what he did, because I mean, that probably led to his longevity. If he was probably still in football, we don't know, but he led a good long life, and may he's.
Well, of course, we're talking about Man United. We don't want to be ridiculing any one team, but you have to be honest in your summation of Manchester United today, when they have a captain who's playing like a junior player. The captain of Man United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, cannot play soccer properly, international soccer or even domestic soccer. He's shocking that. You didn't see the match over the weekend with Man City and Man United, no?
I saw it, yeah.
It was a terrible watch. Terrible watch.
It was, well, I mean, they're a total shambles. I mean, for the second goal, they're the centre half, the Swedish guy, goes out to confront the City player when there's already two United players out there, and he goes out and does absolutely nothing. And then by him being out there, he pulls Maguire out of position, who Harry Maguire doesn't cover himself in glory in that, because he screwed that up as well. But he pulls both Maguire and then Dalot out of it. And if you look at the top of the picture, Fred is standing at the edge of the 18-yard line, watching the midfield player shoot the ball in the back of the net. And Harry Maguire lets it go through his legs. There was one thing that we were told very early on, right? If there's any danger in the box, put the ball in rosette. They're not going to score from there, right? Yeah. And Harry Maguire had the opportunity to do that. He's facing the end line. The ball is coming right to his feet, and all he's got to do is put it over the top of the stand at Old Trafford. And he doesn't do it, lets the ball run when he doesn't know what's behind him, and they get it, and then they go and score. And then Wan-Bissaka is making a terrible mess of trying to get on a block on it. It was just like, it was just a mess. But what we're talking about though is the same thing that happened to Frank. You've got factions in the dressing room that are coming to the end of their time. They're not doing the job they're supposed to be doing, and they're pointing the finger everywhere else. You've got Eric Bailly, who, if I was him, I'd keep my mouth firmly shut, because he's already played this year and he's made more mistakes this year as a centre back to be criticizing Harry Maguire when you're making the same mistakes when you're out there. It's all finger pointing, and there's nobody there that just is ready to tell him, shut up, or get out
Mhm.
or go and play. You know, in
I
our
think-
day, you'd be told you're going to go and play on the third team. And you know why you're playing on the third team? Because we don't have a fourth team.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why you're playing on the third team.
Yes.
You know, and it's
Absolutely.
just ridiculous what's happening there.
It is. And Anna, you should be kind to Man United now and have a word with your. have a-
Look, since
your-
we said before Christmas, since before the other manager was sacked, we're talking about it.
Right.
And you know, I mean, I saw the last two. I was, as I said, I was in Cork the last 2 weeks. Yesterday at the Munster Championships, but I saw the last 2 goals. But the thing about it is, when that second goal and then the third, they just gave up. The heads went down and they didn't even try. The schoolboy team would have done better than them. I'm being honest, not even a junior team, a schoolboy team. Basic soccer moves, they didn't even do it. But you know what was said as well? I mean, I love Liverpool and it's in there. You know, they can go on to win it maybe, but it took the gloss away from City's win because all you were hearing is how bad Man United were. There was nothing about City winning. It was how bad Man United. They still took control after it. And I mean, this is ridiculous, lads, you know.
It is. It is. And Arsenal, Man City, Leicester, Chelsea, Liverpool, they all won, as we know, in the Premiership. Tonight, there's a kick-off as we're on air. Tottenham are playing Everton, but I don't think that'll be much of a game because I think Everton are prime relegation material by the look of their place on the table anyway. They're in the bottom 4, as far as I know. Yeah, they're in the bottom 4. It's an ignominious position for them. When you look at how well they did the last couple of years as a team, I don't know what's happening. Maybe the money is going out of the game. I don't know. There's many problems with the game of soccer as we explored here on this show. But
2 weeks ago, Pat, I was at the Liverpool Leeds match.
yeah,
I was there to see the 6 goals. Yeah,
they won
Oh,
that.
nice.
Yeah,
6-0.
I think
It was 6-1. Sorry, it was 7.
it was a very close match, was it?
Very close.
What was it like? The atmosphere and all that.
I couldn't pass. I've been Anfield lots of times, but we were where we were in the stand, but we were just in front of where the goal we say was, and the cop right next to the cop. The atmosphere and the songs and the singing. Oh, it was just electrifying. There's nothing like Anfield on a match night. Nothing like it. It's
Not
brilliant.
even a Fairview match, no?
No, not even a Fairview match. And I love Fairview.
But anyway, Grimsby won 1-0, Joe. They're making good progress up the table. They beat Woking 1-0. And Celtic are top of the Premiership in Scotland by 3 points. Is it, Chris? 3 points, I think. Anyway,
Yeah.
Frank O'Farrell, just to finish up with the poor old Frank and Eliashir Gurab on him. He managed in Weymouth, player manager in Weymouth, Torquay United for people who like this thing, Leicester City, Man United, Cardiff City, Iran, and Torquay finally in 76 and 77, and again in 81 and 82. Well, there you go, another fine football man gone to his eternal reward. Now, we touched briefly on rugby. The Six Nations is only back on again next weekend, I think. Is it, Chris? Yeah.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Yep.
And but we had wins in the United Rugby Championships. It's called. Leinster beat Benetton, Munster beat the Dragons. A friend of mine was at the Munster Dragons match. He said that they won it 64-3.
Yeah.
And Leinster won it 61-17, and Ulster beat Cardiff 48-12, and Edinburgh beat Connacht 56.
Yeah, there was no puff out of that Magic Dragon. I can guarantee you that from watching it the other night. They were awful. I mean, there was 10 tries. You know, I mean, it reminded me of the first half was even, the second half was even worse. You know, it was terrible. It was shocking. I mean, it's as if the Welsh clubs have just given up. You talk about white flags and all that; they have collectively given up. And what they're doing at the moment is actually bringing the competition in disrepute, because what they're doing is they're giving the likes of Munster and Leinster, a false kind of narrative of what they really are. Because, I mean, are they actually playing their strong teams? I mean, they're not. I mean, Munster didn't play their strongest team the other night. Leinster didn't play their strongest team, and they're winning by cricket scores, and it's doing the competition a disservice. I mean, you've been bleating on here last few weeks about Italy. I think they want to take a hard look at some of the Welsh teams that are there. You know what I mean?
Well, the top
I
teams,
think they're absolutely disgraceful. I actually coming to the point there. I mean, I think it was like a 6 minute period in the second half. It was just a try, then another one, then another one, 4 tries in the space of 5 or 6 minutes, and you're looking at it going, hang on a second, no, they've basically just they're not even trying, and I think it's something that has to be done about that. I mean, you can talk about other clubs and other teams and other competitions, but that's where in the league matches, when you've got a situation where you've got no relegation, that they really don't care where they fall because they're going to be there next year. And that's where a competition like that, where there is no jeopardy, that once they know they're not going to win anything or qualify, they're just going to send out kids, and it's dangerous.
yeah. And you didn't get to see any of the rugby, lads, no?
Well, my
No.
granddaughter was 5 last week, and she's only 5, and she can name all the Munster team for you. And she was in Thomond Park on Saturday night with her mum and dad. I was told that when I went out this morning. And Nana, and like Chris said, Nana, they scored try after try after try, Nana, she said. For the kids, it's brilliant. But do you think, Chris, that, you send the team out to play, do you not send them out with pride of their club? Would that not come into it, or what?
I don't. I mean, I think it's the problem that you have in a situation like this is that if I would have gone to 1 or 2 of those matches in the past, and I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at the team sheet maybe a week beforehand, and I'm looking whereabouts in the calendar that I know that some of the top Irish players and some of the top Welsh players are not going to be playing. So you kind of says, well, I'm not going to spend €25 per head going in and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, a night out like that with 2 or 3 of us is €150, €200, and that's it, right? And you kind of wonder, well, we're not getting value for money here, and that's the problem that you have. And if this kind of thing happens, then what's going to happen is the fans are going to vote with their feet. And in fact, there was my young lad who said it the other night while watching. He says, "Blimey, that looks like a small crowd there." So the people are now voting with their feet, and they're picking the matches when they go, accordingly. And the biggest problem is that Munster need the money. I mean, they've lost a fortune over the last couple of years, same as the Welsh clubs. But what the point I'm making is that, the IRFU are not going to step in and help Munster. They've made that clear. And so the point is that and they keep being, that they are being kind of aggressive in their advertising, selling seats. Now, my young lad was on to me about, let's go to the extra match because that's the European Cup. And I went, yeah, fine. And I looked at the tickets, and to stand in the terrace underneath the one of the stands, right, where the TV cameras are, it's €35 a head. I mean, that's the stand. I mean, that's all Ireland final prices for terrace stands.
My 2 sons, you're talking about 100.
So I mean, it's it's about €105, €110 plus your credit card booking fee before you step outside the door, Anna, and people are going, really,
Plus
really.
plus your €8 burger.
Well, you can have that if you want, Pat, but I won't be eating an €8 burger, that's for sure. It could probably be 10 by the time we get there.
But why would you pay money like that to watch a reserve team?
But there you go.
You were saying earlier, that might be a decent game if it's a European game, but the other games,
No.
I mean, why would you pay to watch reserve players play? And it just, I mean, isn't competition the essence of sport?
Exactly, Joe. Exactly.
So why are you even playing a game if you're not being competitive? It doesn't make any sense to me.
You see, the
No.
problem, the problem with Irish people is this: we've always, and this is the thing why, and if you look back on our, it's that, and I'm of the firm belief that Irish people do not have the patience to watch a league, like say a soccer league for like say 30 odd matches. They won't get the attendances. The Irish people seem to like the cut and thrust stuff, the quick kill, the quick match, the quick decision, the quick kind of win. That's why the GAA Championship for decades is so kind of ingrained in Irish life, because it's on the day, knockout, move on to the next game. That's where it always is. I don't think Irish people would invest in a 20, 30, 40 match season. And I think with the rugby, I think what's happened is that the novelty over the time has worn off. The crowds are disappearing. I mean, there was a time when Munster would get 26,000 if you saw two flies running up against the wall. That's where, but now those days are far over, to the point.
At that time, at that time, Munster would be putting out their stars, so to speak.
Absolutely.
But
But they'd be competitive as well, right? They'd be,
Yeah.
they'd be
But there were
going for silverware.
Well, there was two things that the problem was there, right? The two things that stopped that killed the golden goose, for want of a better phrase, would be that the IFU decided to have game management on their players. So, like the likes of Paul O'Connell was basically said, you're not playing any more than 10 matches a year for Munster, and we're going to pick those 10 matches a year or 12 matches a year. So the fans who were going paying their 20, 30, 40 euro looking for Paul O'Connell was sorely kind of looking at, where's Paul tonight? And then they realised that, well, Ireland's got a match coming up in 3 weeks' time. Paul's being rested. And then went, well, I ain't going to this again. And that's what's happened.
And Munster and Leinster, you'd love to see the likes of Ronan O'Gara on the one side and Stringman and O'Connell pitched against O'Driscoll and what's his name that was in the centre with him? Gordon
Darcy.
On Darcy. I mean, these were the players you want to see head to head. And they were fantastic games, but really it's shambolic now the way the sport is run anyway. And
well, people are going to vote for their feet, Pat. People are just going to vote with their feet. Yeah. People are just basically going to say, especially when times are getting a little bit tougher, they're going to go, well, if I'm going to go to 2 or 3 matches in a year, what matches shall I go to? And that's it.
But do you know, Chris, I'm going back to, we say, before Munster players were being paid and all of this. I remember in Limerick, to go to the league matches, Shannon versus Young Munsters, Garryowen, they were outstanding matches. The fight and the fire that was in those teams was unreal. And then when they started paying the players, I mean, it done away with the league, really. Like, I mean, I know there's a league there, but it's not really.
It's not the same.
No, and that's what's happening with Munster now as well. It seems to be what's happening with Munster as well now. But I remember going back, and maybe it was the 90s, I can't remember, going to see Young Munsters versus Shannon outside in Thomond Park, and it was unreal. It really was fantastic.
The problem with the rugby, before you come in, any emerging talented player, I know in Munster in the club scene, they're taken away off that team into an academy, Munster Academy, and wrapped up and minded. They're not playing their way every week. They're not getting experience in the head-to-head. I don't know. I'm not an expert, but it's.
Well, I think the problem that about the rugby when you're talking about when it was when Ger Earls and all those and Peter Clossy played for Young Munster in the mid 1990s when the All Ireland League would have had 30,000 in Lansdowne Road for the final, right? Those were the matches people wanted to see. But then when it became like, this is going to be the paid, then what's happening is, well, okay, well, he's getting paid, I'm lining the field, I'm not getting paid. That's why the GAA could never go full-time professionalism, because it's a volunteer organization. And the day you will see players getting paid is when the volunteerism will finish in the GAA.
Yeah. Well, we wish all the teams, I don't know what the end is. Oh yeah, looking forward before we leave rugby, Ireland are playing England in Twickenham, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Scotland are playing, I don't know what the rest,
Wales and France. Wales and France is Friday night. Scotland and Italy is Saturday afternoon. Ireland and England is Saturday evening.
So there's one decent match out of the three of them.
Well, I think France and Wales will always be a decent game. But yeah, look, I think I'd be disappointed if Ireland don't win this one. But it's a way. But Twickenham is always a hard place for us to get a win.
Well, I don't know myself. We wish them well, lads. Ireland and England, Italy and Scotland, is it?
Yeah.
Scotland will obviously get their points there, their bonus point as well, handily enough. And then France, who I think they'll steamroll Wales, you know. I think they're a superb team. Second to the All Blacks in my book, yeah, or maybe the Springboks, I don't know. Anyway, we wish them all well. The GA League, the National Hurling League, was continued over the weekend. Our domestic league, Jordan, I don't want to see any of the games, but Limerick picked up their first points up the road from them in Ennis. They drew with Clare, and they had a man sent off again. It's a pattern, a very disturbing pattern, I suppose, in a way, that they have a man sent off almost in every game, which would speak, I think, to the management style of the team. Maybe there's no questioning of John Kiley because he's won 3 All-Irelands, but discipline in the team has to be primary as well as skill. And if you don't have that discipline, to labour now with 14 players for a huge part of a game is an impediment, no matter what way you look at it with the fitness of the players. So obviously, I met Brian Lohan briefly this morning in the town centre in Shannon, and Brian got a yellow card. Brian is the manager of Clare.
But wasn't there one of the Clare teams sent off as well?
Oh, there was, yeah, but I'm talking about Limerick. Limerick has a player sent off in every game nearly in the league so far, which is a problem for Limerick, I think.
But do you not think, Pat, that because of the high profile of Limerick, that this is what they're looking at, and you know, they're be more critical of Limerick than any other team, maybe?
Well, Cork had a player sent off against Limerick.
No, and I think the problem is, you see, is that they've been. No, hang on a second. No, the problem about Limerick is that they've been getting away with it for a couple of years. It's been highlighted, and I think now that they're clamping down, right? And the reason why they're clamping down is I think they've been getting away with murder for the last couple of years over. That's my own opinion on this. I think there's some of the striking that has been there, and some of the tackling has been. And I don't like that phrase "on the edge." It's either yes or no. It's either illegal or legal. That some of the tackling has been, and I put it down to poor refereeing, right? And this is the thing I've always said about the championship is this, and I've said this for the last 5 or 6 years. I remember we were going down. This is the first year that the Munster Championship was made into a round robin event where you play 4 matches, and we were going down to Waterford, and it was early May, and I said in the car going down, I says, "Listen, lads," I says, "you're going to see a completely different championship match refereed today than what you're going to get in the All-Ireland final in September or whatever it was." And then, "What do you mean?" I said, "I guarantee you, first day of the season, this referee is going to blow his whistle if he's at a concert playing the tin whistle, right? It's going to be all over the place." And he blew for fouls that weren't even fouls. And after 20 minutes, the people who turn on to me says, "How did you get this one right?" I says, "Look, these guys have been assessed. There's a guy up in the stand ticking boxes, and that's what the referee does." When it came to like the quarterfinal, semi-final All-Ireland, the referee went out as if he left his whistle in the dressing room. And that's the inconsistency. Now, the last couple of years, because of the COVID, there was a shortened championship and stuff like that. I felt it was more noticeable that when it came to the All-Ireland Championship, that there was a lot of stuff being let go. And it was just, you know, now they're picking on like the hand pass. I mean, the hand pass, I've seen so many. They might as well just fling it as if it was like, say, baseball. Just get over and done with. But what's happening in hurling at the moment is this, that there was some blatant red cards that the referees didn't get because they're trying to let the game go. But they were, when they look back at it, I can guarantee you, when it came to the assessment, and they know they do their assessments on a monthly basis, some of these referees are told that you either give the red card or you ain't whistling again.
Well, the problem with the card would be, without labouring too much, if you get sent off in a match, in a GA match with a second yellow, there's a 1-match ban. If you get sent off with a straight red card, they can give you up to any number of games. So that's the problem Limerick will have. They may be missing, like for instance, Garrod Hegarty is a fantastic hurler in my book. Fantastic hurler. They might be without him. Aaron Gillan got sent off yesterday against Clare up in Ennis. Fantastic forward. Really, if you get a straight red card, it's very serious. And
but they would deserve red cards, Pat.
Yeah, but they must remember this is March. Today is the 7th, is it?
Yeah.
The championship is starting the Easter weekend in April.
5 weeks away.
Not
But
very.
that wasn't, Alan Gillan yesterday wasn't a straight red, that was 2 yellow cards.
Yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
but he deserved it.
But they'll be
And
looking at your
John
pass rate.
Kiley didn't seem to think he deserved a second one.
Of course but of course John Kiley's going to say that. When did the manager ever say that his player deserved to get sent off?
Oh, yeah. But
I mean,
when
I'll
we,
be honest about it, Anna. I mean, you're into boxing, right? There's going to be times when you're boxing the camp, you're not going to say, "Yeah, my guy or my girl in the corner deserved to lose by whatever the judges said." I mean, no, I've never heard that from a boxing coach or a boxing manager. The fact of the point is that, of course, listen, they're going to be like Arsene Wenger. I never saw that. I need to have a look at that. The fact of the matter is, John Kiley has admitted today or last night that the amount of red cards that Limerick are getting is concerning.
Yeah.
and just for people who will be listening, looking at this later on, who might have been away the weekend, Limerick and Clare drew 18 points each. Limerick got 9 points from play in the whole match. The others were frees. Waterford beat Tipperary 127 to 21 points. Waterford are my bet to be dark horses in Munster. I know I'm from Cork, but Waterford are. Cork 126, Galway 23 points, and Dublin got a hiding from Kilkenny.
What I will say is more concerning to Limerick people is this, right? It's not just the yellow cards and the red cards they're getting. What I feel is most concerning for Limerick at the moment, and it seems to be a trend over the last 4 matches, is that their scoring power the taps have been turned off. That then, I mean, when they could score 28, 30 points, 35 points in all championship matches last year, I mean, the fact that they only scored 9 points from play, the week before they only scored a goal in 13 in total against Cork. That's the most concerning thing, is that their free-flowing scoring has stopped. And, you know, I've said this for a long time. To win a hurling match these days, you're going to have to score about 25 times. Not 25 points, at least 25 times. Waterford proved that the other day. Kilkenny proved that the other day. Cork proved that the other day. If you don't score 20 to 25 times, you're not going to win the vast majority of hurling matches. And, you know, when we're talking about maybe 6 weeks' time when the weather should get better, the pitches get better, the pitches get harder, you know, you will want to be scoring that 25 times, because if you don't, you're not going to get through.
So Chris, what do you actually think will say, right, everyone was saying, oh, Limerick are there for the years to come. All of a sudden, the last 3 matches, you know, what do you think is, you know, most of the team that's playing with Limerick are last year's team and the year before. So what would you think looking at it? I don't know a lot about the GAA. I know how to follow a game, and that I followed it when I was younger. But what do you think is causing it?
What I think the problem is this, right? If you take what Limerick, right, they won the All-Ireland in 2018 in normal circumstances, had the celebrations and whatever. They lost 2019, and then they had the truncated 2020 All-Ireland Championship, which finished the week before Christmas. They won that, okay, but they couldn't celebrate it because of all the restrictions and regulations, which is probably a good thing. Then we went straight into the All-Ireland Championship 2021. They won that. Again, they couldn't get out much, but now they were able to get out. But then again, they're still playing the club championship matches as well. And I just think maybe, see, I've always said this before, they're amateur players. They have a lot going on. They want to live their life. They're young lads. They want to go out and have a drink. They've got studies. They've got jobs. They've got a lot of off-the-field stuff as well. It's very, very difficult to do it 3-4 years in a row and keep the hunger going. Now, when you're professional, you can do it because you're still getting paid. And, you know, if you're playing for your contract from 1 year to the next. But when it comes to GAA, you're not playing for your contract. So, I mean, it's really up to the management to decide whether they can spot whether you've lost a hunger or not.
Right.
Is there other people coming up to take your place? Is there competition for places? Now, what Limerick have tried to do the last couple of years is by flinging young lads in to kind of make it very competitive, where players are playing for their places. But the problem is that it's very, very difficult to go to the well all the time. That's the problem.
And Joe,
Well, it's a huge problem. I mean, you watch it in the Premier League. Man City, who are probably a class above anybody else, they haven't won the Premier League 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
I don't remember anybody doing that at any point.
very
win it that many times. It becomes so difficult for you to maintain the standard that you have,
Right.
that you've achieved, and to do it on a daily basis in training, and then to come to a game. At some point, you've got to have letdown. And like Chris is saying there, you know, maybe they're playing so many games as well, you know, playing so many matches. They're playing club stuff as well as county stuff, and it becomes, you know, it becomes very, very wearing after a while. And it takes a special group. I mean, how, of course, in football, Dublin did it for what, 6 years or whatever it was. But you see what's happening to them now as well. Even the change there has affected them. So I can see what's happening with Limerick. I can see, Chris, what you're saying is that the referees are calling it tighter now. So it becomes a bit of a different game, you know, and which I just don't understand why a refereeing standard cannot be the same consistency no matter what. It reminds me of Grimsby playing in the playoff final for the non-league 4, 5, 6 years ago, where they're playing, I think it was either Halifax or Hartlepool, and Grimsby guy is through on goal, defender pulls him down, and the referee doesn't give a penalty. And he says, I didn't want to ruin the game. Well, you've ruined the game for one team. You know, in an important final. So it's not your job as a referee to decide if you're going to ruin the game for one team or not. Your job is to protect the players and enforce the laws of the game.
100%.
That's what you're there for.
And you're
I think go on, sorry, Pat.
Because Kilkenny was the last team to win 3 in a row, 6, 7, and 8, I think, in the noughties. But prior to that, there was no team won 3 in a row since the 70s.
Cork came in 70s.
So they're a rare feat in hurling. They're a rare feat in the modern game anyway. And for Limerick to win 3 out of 4 All-Irelands has been phenomenal. There's no doubt about that. And obviously, they're still, in my book, in the GA book of hurling, one of the best teams I've seen playing hurling. Whether they win, lose, or draw this year, it's irrelevant. They'll go down in history.
Let's give it a small little bit of time for this, right? We're talking about amateur players here, right? We're talking about, a lot of them are young men, very young men, right? Who want to go to college and they want to do what? Go for a pint with their mates. And let's be honest with you, they're living like monks for 9 months of the year, right? I mean, and this is the key to this. I mean, you look at, I can tell you the Clare situation here. Aaron Cunningham, fine player, went away to Australia for 2 years. Peter Duggan, who scored that unbelievable point 3 or 4 years ago in a semi-final against Galway, right? I was in Croke Park watches. One of the best things, one of the most amazing things I ever see, the skill level, right? He's only coming back this week after 2-3 years out of the Clare team, right? Because these guys want to live a life. It's as simple as that. And you've got guys who are going to college, and you have to remember this time of year, it is extremely difficult if you're with your college playing Sigerson's Cup or Fitzgibbon Cup, and you're there because of a scholarship, so you have to play, and your county manager is saying, are you going to be here next week? And you're playing maybe 3-4 matches in a very, very short period of time. And, you know, I'm no sports medical scientist, but this is the time of year where the cruciate ligament injuries happen more than any other time due to the way that our young players are being flogged and the condition of the pitches. All it takes is your studs to get stuck into a pitch and you're done for a year. And that's it. And the problem is that the GAA don't take player welfare seriously when it comes to things like this. And maybe there's a time, Anna, when some of the Limerick players are going, do you know what? 3 All-Ireland championships, I'm only 22, 23, 24 years of age. Hey, I could retire. And a lot of hurlers are retiring at a young age of 30, 25, 20, 27, 28. I mean, one of the best, Padraig Maher, Waterford player, 28. Jesus, I remember hurlers going on to 35, 36. Anybody who's going to 35, 36 might as well bring their bus pass with them.
Christy Ring was going on, he was 47.
40 odd. Yeah, I mean, that's but that's the point. Those days are over because the amount of training, see, people don't realize this. The amount of training that an inter-county hurler at that level has to put in. is
And
just,
time,
I mean,
time.
it's professional level stuff.
Well, the final whistle is the program here, and it's we record this program on Monday nights, and on this Monday night, the 7th of March, I see that Everton are more deep in trouble before half time. They're already 3-0 down
Oh,
So-
no.
after 36
Whoops.
7 minutes. So really, I think unfortunately, I have a soft spot for the Toffees, to see. Anyway,
I'd hate to see them go down, Pat. I really would.
well, they're in serious
Yeah.
trouble. Tottenham.
Have they ever been relegated?
I
Everton?
don't think so.
No,
I
no, they
don't
haven't.
remember them being in the first division ever.
Themselves and
Yeah.
Arsenal, I think, are the only two that have never been relegated.
Right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we wish Limerick, and Limerick will, as the old cliche, you don't become a bad team overnight, except you're Man United. Anyway, in snooker over the weekend, we had the Welsh Open, and Joe Perry beat Judd Trump last night, for people who are interested in snooker, which was a surprise, really, because Trump was in good form. That's Judd Trump, in case people get mixed up with their Trumps. A lot of Trumps around now. Judd Trump, we're talking about, the snooker player who wears these beautiful crocodile shoes, lads, if you ever saw him.
You're only jealous. You're
I
just
know
jealous.
that. That'll tell you how bored I am with life. But
Yeah.
anyway,
You're supposed to be looking on the table, not below the table.
I know, yeah. Yeah, the long shot. But now another legend of the sporting world. To me, I remember when I was in London in 1973, I got an interest in cricket. But this man, to me, put modern game of cricket on the map and made it exciting. Shane Warne, we're talking about, of course,
Ah, stop.
the king of spin, passed away at the very young age of 52. I was sad when I read it, genuinely sad, because I started watching cricket when that man came into it, and he was just, as the man said, he drank like a fish, he smoked like a trooper, and he was the king of spin. Huge personality, and the sad thing for me is, shame on Australia, they never made him captain of his team. Joe, did you see him playing?
I did see him play, but you know, we lost another one as well last week. Rodney Marsh,
Wicket keeper.
the wicket keeper
Right, yeah.
for Australia.
Yeah.
And you know, another fantastic player, larger than life. They had a competition when they would fly from Australia to London, how many beers they could drink on the flight. And I think Rod Marsh managed to put down 24, but the guy that beat him drank 25. And apparently he tried it again the next time to do it, and they had to bring him off the plane in a wheelchair because he passed out. So, but all these guys were just characters that were, you know, at a different time. You know, Rodney Marsh played with probably two of the greatest bowlers of all time for Australia, with Thompson and Lilly.
Oh, Thompson and Lilly, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So managed to see them when they played Leicestershire when they were on tour. You know, so I actually started watching cricket in 1969 when I went to Leicester. Ray Illingworth was there. Graham Cross, who played for Leicester City, also played county cricket for Leicestershire.
Yeah.
A little like Chris Balderson and those guys that he played for Carlisle and played cricket for his county. So it was fun times to watch these guys and be able to be around them.
I was watching a video of Shane Warne bowling spin, and he threw the ball. It was Australia and England, to always be England, of course, this show. But anyway, the wicket keeper decided, geez, this ball is going wide, I won't bother hitting it. But the spin on the ball in behind his leg, back leg, and took the wicket. I mean,
But that was the ball of the century. That was the one that got Mike Gatting first ball in the Ashes in the, I think it was 95 or something like that, where even now Mike Gatting is still wondering what happened, you know. And he was actually interviewed on TV, but I missed it because I had to come up to work. Like, but he just says he couldn't believe it. But I mean, but one thing that while Warren was such a good player. He was actually a very good commentator, and he could read the game very well. And
Yeah.
I understand your point about him not being captain of Australia, but you know what? Not everybody can. And you know, there's probably other great players that never got it, or you know, yeah, I would say that he probably had his brushes with administration. That
Of
he
course.
probably didn't, you know,
This-
that he was good at what he did, but he wasn't going to be a yes man for anybody,
Well,
and he was
well
true to
documented.
that.
You're like myself, and we don't have a passing interest in cricket. We don't.
And
Although
it's so funny, Pat, because my husband followed cricket, you know, and
Yeah.
if he said something to somebody about cricket here, they'd be laughing. They actually laughed at him because he followed it, but he loved to watch cricket.
Great game to watch.
Okay.
It's a great
He
game.
loved it.
I remember going to a place in I was in England, staying with an uncle a while back. I think it was 1992, and we went to myself and a couple of people he knew said, "Will you take him out for the day?" So we went to Chelmsford in Essex to watch Essex play. I don't even think I saw more than 5 or 6 balls. We were in the tent all day, drinking away till like 8 o'clock at night. But it was just the way it was. I mean, but Joe made a very important point there about the relationship between cricket and football over there. A lot of players played soccer in the winter and cricket in the summer to supplement their earnings. Because when you played soccer in England, once the season finished, that was you done. And then you had to go play cricket to play for your county to make up the shortfall. I mean, as far as I remember, Dennis Compton played for Arsenal, played
Yeah.
cricket for England. You know, one of these guys that basically
That's
played.
right, yeah, I've forgotten
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, he was one guy that played both. He played international in soccer and cricket for England. Even Liam Botham, not Liam Botham. Ian Botham played soccer,
Yeah.
played cricket. But if you go back to like the 40s, 50s, and 60s, there's a lot of top class soccer players in England that played county in cricket to make up a wage in summertime.
And
But
Ashley,
what used to happen in the old days was that you get 20 pound a week was the maximum wage back then. So you get £20 for the season and £15 for the off season. So the story is that Tommy Docherty was playing at Preston North End with Frank O'Farrell and Tom Finney. And Tommy Doc goes in to renegotiate his contract, and the manager says to him, "Well, we'll give you 20 for the season and 15 for the off season." And Tommy Docherty says to him, he says, "No," I said, I want what Tom Finney is getting. He gets 20 in the season and 20 in the off season. I want the same as him." And he says, "But you can't have the same as Tom Finney. He's a better player than you." And Tommy Docherty says, "He's not in the summertime."
Very good.
That's a great story. That'll be Tommy Docherty from.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a brilliant one. Very funny.
But Ashley Barty, who, as we know, has been a top-class tennis player, she took a break from tennis and played top-class cricket with the women's team in Australia and was a fantastic player. Came back to tennis again. Of course, there's been a lot of crossover, all right? That's a very good story, Joe, you know.
That's a funny one. That's a good one. I must remember that one.
Of course, he managed, as you know, or would I say he was appointed manager of Manchester United. It's a different thing to manage them. You can be appointed manager of any team, but can you manage them? Actually, one of the criticisms of Frank O'Farrell was that when he went to Manchester United, well, a couple of the players have said this, I was reading about it today, was that in order to have a meeting, Joe, with Frank O'Farrell, you had to make an appointment and a time and then be there at that time. You just couldn't walk into...
Oh, no. The boss always had a secretary. And, you know, at Leicester, it was exactly the same way. If you wanted to speak to the boss, then you had to, or the secretary of the club, their office was side by side.
Yes.
And if you needed to speak to any of those, you had to make an appointment and be there and be on time. If you missed your slot, then that was it. You know, so yeah,
And
I mean, that was Frank. I mean, I think that was a lot. Matt was a lot freer with it. You know, John Giles used to talk about the difference between Matt and Don Revie and how they were. Don Revie was very regimented in his way, whereas Matt Busby was kind of laissez-faire about it.
yeah,
You know, Revie, if there was a fight in training, would get in the middle of it and call guys in and, you know, strip them down and give them, you know, read them the riot act. And Busby would turn around and said, "Hey, enough of that nonsense. We'll have no more of that." And it would stop immediately, and that was it. So just different management styles.
as
And of course,
what's said about some managers, they manage by looking out the window at training.
well, you know, Brian Clough probably made the greatest comment about management. And he said, you know, the worst thing that players hear is to constantly hear your voice. When they hear you speak, they need to be listening. And if they hear you every minute of every day, then you become white noise.
Yes,
That
yes,
makes
So
sense.
that's-
That makes sense.
yeah,
So that's why
Yeah.
Cloughie would let, you know, I mean, he would let Peter Taylor or Jimmy Gordon, who is his coach, he would let Jimmy Gordon take training, and he'd tell Jimmy Gordon to go out and run the BJs out with the lads, you know, and really
Yeah.
take it to them today. And then halfway through it, Clough would come out and he said, "Jimmy, what are you doing to these lads? You tried to kill them. These are soccer players. They're not race horses. Get away from them, all that." And that's the kind of stuff he used to do to them, you know, and just win their trust from that, you know.
Psychology.
So,
Psychology.
yeah, it's total psychology, you know, because you need him to be listening to you at the
He's right.
important times. I mean, Ferguson, he used to stand in his office at Carrington and he'd look out the window. And every player would know he was looking out the window. So there would be no drop in effort, no drop. And he had the same philosophy. They only need to hear my voice on game day. You
yeah.
know, that's the important time.
Or the shoe that's flying across the dressing room.
Yeah. Or the teacup.
That famous shoe. I wonder who threw that shoe. I don't
Well,
know.
You heard that story about when Cantona drop kicked the guy at was it at Crystal Palace or was it at Millwall?
Crystal Palace.
When he got sent off and the guy was giving him stick and he kung fu'd him.
Mhm.
So they're all going to lose the game anyway, and they all go in afterwards, and they're all going in, they're all giggling because they know they all think that they've got out of trouble because Cantona is going to be in huge trouble for doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So Fergie gets into the dressing room, and he goes through each player one by one, and you Beckham, you're useless, this, that, and the other, and he ripped all 10 of the players up one side and down the other, and then he said, Eric, you can't be doing stuff like that, son. And then continued and moved on. You pick your battles, you know.
Yeah, Cantona. I loved watching Cantona.
He was something else.
I loved watching
He
him.
must have been the most. He must have been the biggest, best bargain ever for any club.
Oh, he was a
1.2
huge
million.
target.
1.2 million. I mean, you couldn't at this stage. You wouldn't buy the cutlery in the kitchen for that now.
Yeah.
But he came into a good team.
Mm.
Well, he was
Well, he
he was
did.
what made it off. He set it off like he was the missing jigsaw piece.
But you know, the things that people didn't realize about Eric Cantona, his work ethic was second to none. And when everybody else finished training, he would be out on the field and he would be practicing all the things, you know, the half volleys and the volleys that you saw him do in games and what have you. He'd be out on his own and he'd be doing that.
Mm.
And then very soon the rest of the lads saw that and started to stay behind as well and start working on what they were working on or what they needed to work on. And it just became a habit for all of them that would be the way that they would do it. And I mean, that was I think the difference in it, the level that he kind of now took it up to a notch was phenomenal. And then that he was able to do it in, I don't know if you've seen it, but I watched the game the other day. United were in that green and yellow half or quarter
That jersey, yeah.
uniform.
The old Newton Heath colours. They were the old Newton Heath
Yeah, the
colours.
old Newton Heath one, yeah. And they were playing Wimbledon, and Vinnie Jones nearly breaks Cantona in half. The game, it's a cup match. And the game was just like, it was horrible. Wimbledon were just kicking lumps out of United. And then all of a sudden, the ball falls to Cantona on the edge of the box, and he just whips a volley into the far top corner. I mean, it was just pure Cantona. And in spite of just getting ripped and kicked all over the place, he still has the composure to do something like that in a game like that. It was brilliant.
And do you remember the 1988 Cup final?
Liverpool and Wimbledon.
Wimbledon won that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Against Liverpool? Was that against Liverpool?
That was against Liverpool. I'm trying to think. It was Laurie Sanchez scored the goal.
Laurie Sanchez scored the goal, yeah. That was when Vinnie Jones broke Steve McMahon in half early on in the game. And Steve McMahon never recovered from that. Yeah.
No, Steve McMahon. Right. I remember Steve McMahon tried the same trick with Norman Whiteside when Whiteside was a kid, and Whiteside broke him in two.
Yeah.
Right? Broke him in two. See, I don't like fellas and I'll be honest with you, I don't like fellas getting injured, but if fellas are going out to try and do another fella and they get injured, well, look, as far as I'm concerned, so be it. But Steve McMahon was one nasty, nasty individual who was basically on that Liverpool team to do and create damage. And he tried to do Whiteside. He tried to do others, and they just went, you know what, we're not having any of this. And he came off worse. And he tried to cripple Whiteside at a very, very early age, and Whiteside got the better of him. And that was it. And he never did anything again after that. He was afraid of Whiteside. Whiteside was a hard lad for a young lad.
Oh, he was a tough player.
Case. Oh, tough.
Yes, he was. Yeah, he was.
Laurie Sanchez managed Northern Ireland, didn't
he? He did, yeah.
Yeah.
Played from managed him, yeah.
Yeah. He did for a while.
And he was Wycombe Wanderers. He was with Wycombe Wanderers when I think they got to, was it quarterfinal, semi-final of the FA Cup a good few years ago? I remember that. Now they were close. They got to the semi-finals a good few years ago, I think.
Did he take over
anyway.
Did he take over from Martin O'Neill?
He did.
After O'Neill went to Leicester?
Yeah.
Or to one of them? Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
He's a decent coach. I mean, he was a hard player. He was what he was of that team at that time.
Wimbledon are in Division 1, isn't it?
It's a split club now, you see, because they went to Milton Keynes, and so I mean, it's just.
Well, there's the MK Dons, but there's still Wimbledon FC as well.
Yeah, but it's like, but you know what? I understand your point, but it's a bit like saying, like, they tried to make an AFC United after the Glazers bought Man United. You know what I mean? The MK Dons, for one, well, what they are now is Wimbledon. The AFC Wimbledon that's there now is obviously doesn't have the finance that MK Dons have, doesn't have the staging that they have. So it's kind of like I wouldn't say a poor imitation. It's just the way things happened. I mean, it's sad to see it, because I even heard that when they were actually playing each other, they were actually, there's so much bitterness that they wouldn't even name that club in the program. They just says, we're taking on these guys today. They wouldn't even mention the other club's name. I mean, that's how bitter it's become. I mean, and even in the scoreboard, they would put down away team and not their name. It was just, it's the bitterness is still there over it.
Now, Anna, before we finish, what's in the agenda for boxing next weekend? Did you say the Munster Championships are on?
Our Munster Championships finish this weekend, so I'm going to Dublin tomorrow. We'll do the draw for the 14th, 15th and 16th, which start on Friday, and they'll go on for 3 weekends. The next
and where are they being held? Dublin?
International Boxing Stadium in Dublin.
Or in the National Stadium.
Yeah, we had our own club. We 9 of our boxers are through, so
Oh my
we're
God,
happy with that. We're very happy.
that's good. And well, for this edition, as of the final whistle being, as we said, we didn't do adequate justice really. We just at the surface of one Frank O'Farrell and who. Jeff Boycott, was it Joe you mentioned? I forgot about him. Was it? No, Rodney Marsh.
Oh,
was it?
Rodney Marsh.
And you know, I was thinking of the other Rodney Marsh as well. I saw him playing
Yes.
I saw him playing with George Best in 1975, I think.
For Fulham.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I had another character. We could have another discussion about Rodney Marsh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this edition of the final whistle from Anna Moore, Joe Waters, and Chris Price. That's been a blast again. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you again next week with the help. of God.
Night, everybody.
Take
All
care.
right. Night, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
bye.
Bye bye.